You're listening to What She Said on Canada Talks.
Here we are in studio. I'm Christine Bentley. Sharon Caddy joins us, but we are also joined by something you probably haven't heard of before. It's a person.
A person
who's been pegged as a Canadian cultural entity by the government of Canada. And I have yet to meet a Canadian cultural entity. His name is Charles Malinsky. He's an internationally acclaimed Canadian artist, and he is debuting his newest series entitled TheJourneyContinues at Artworld Fine Art Gallery, and it's opening this weekend. So welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me over.
So how does it feel to be a cultural entity?
I have no idea because I really don't know what that means. I'm just a guy in the studio making stuff.
It
right?
sounds cool, though.
So, I mean, what does a cultural entity eat for breakfast?
He doesn't eat breakfast. He
okay.
Just a cup of coffee.
Just a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of this. It's a surreal sort of title, but it's a great honor, and I'm just teasing you because actually. It is a great honor.
It is. Actually, I don't even know what it means. It was something that happened years ago as a result of one of my collectors bequeathing his entire estate to the University of Victoria, and somehow this got attached to me and my work. And
well, you know, one of the things that Canadians, I think, complain about, and one of our mandates on this show, is that we just don't feel that Canadians pat themselves or other Canadians on the back.
We don't celebrate one another.
So
enough.
we have segments called Simply the Best, where we really do try to celebrate because we have amazing gems in this country, and I'm teasing you, but I'm absolutely delighted at the fact that somebody is giving you a title that's well deserved.
thank you. Thank you.
You know, at least in the art world, because singers and actors complain that there's no star system here. So that's wonderful. So tell us about this newest series.
Well, this is a continuation of a body of work that I began when I moved to Spain. I spent 10 years in Madrid, living and working. Yeah, poor me as well. But I started working on a series that dealt with migration and immigration, and it was a result of my journey to a new country, dealing with the whole idea of being an immigrant essentially, which then reflected back on my grandfather and my ancestors who came to Canada from Europe in an entirely reverse way. So that was the seed for this whole idea or story or narrative. And how I work is I work in these long, drawn-out. More or less, what I do is I try to make a film in paint. So they just go, and each exhibition is a chapter or a scene that carries on throughout the entire narrative. But the underlying concept is simply about human migration.
Well, you started as a teacher, and somehow you made it into art, but I mean, it was such a huge leap. I mean, I don't know whether people out there know that some of the collectors, I mean, Dr. Dre, I mean, we're into celebrity culture here.
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Dre, Vin Diesel, David Caruso, many other people. I mean, there's real celebs that collect your work.
Yeah. Not that I hang out with them or anything like that.
Oh, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you probably had to explain,
I think that probably in North America, there's a real barrier between the artist and the collector. Now, believe me, Dr. Dre and I have never met in my life. He's probably given my work about 5 minutes through his interior designer, but the opposite happens in Europe, where everybody wants to buy the artist. They want to know the artist before they buy the art. So actually the celebrities that I've met in Europe and Spain have been just as big as the ones in Hollywood. But I've been out to dinner with them and invited to Michelin star restaurants as special guests and all kinds of things. And it's a real difference between.
Is your work more, do you think, appreciated or understood in Europe?
It was it was instantly
as
understood.
As opposed to North America?
Absolutely instantly understood. The story I tell was when we first moved there, and lived in an 8-story walk-up building in a working-class neighborhood, and every day when we'd walk down the stairs, the doors would open a little crack, because we were the foreigners, and we were being, And then one day, a woman came out. We were on the 4th floor. She charged out and just gave me a big, big hug and said, "You're the artist."
Oh.
And she said, "We're so proud to have an artist living in our building." And from that day on, we got the better cuts of meat at the carniceria.
Oh, wow.
We got the better fruit. Went to
like
the
a rock star.
pharmacy, and we just come to the front of the line. Yeah, it really was, and everybody that you talk to, it was, artists were top of the thing.
Top of the tier, yeah.
Bigger than, if you were an artist, it was better than being a doctor.
So let me ask you this. Did you get this award, this Canadian award, after they realized you were a superstar in Europe? Because we don't seem to recognize our people, and yet here you are in Spain, and you're already getting preferential treatment within a few months.
Yeah, it really didn't take that long to, and it was simply because I was an artist. It was once they found out that I wasn't half bad, then that was,
then it was really good.
But it's an entirely different approach. I mean, artists are very high in terms of credibility. Whereas,
in Canada?
It's not in Canada.
But in Europe, do you think that it's because over centuries artists have been a recognized part of the community, whereas in Canada, or in North America in general, it's more of a commodity as opposed to part of the culture?
That's absolutely true. And Europeans grow up not only learning about their famous artists, but they learn about their culture through their famous artists. Velázquez painted the kings and queens, and so historically they're very comfortable and also very knowledgeable. Everybody on the street, they're not afraid to talk about art. They're not the first thing you'd always say, "Whoa, you must love the light here in Spain." Right? But when I came back to Canada now I get the reaction. My neighbor asked me, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "I'm an artist." And all of a sudden, the retro burners go.
He must be poor and starving. This is what she said, and we are talking to internationally acclaimed Canadian artist Charles Malinsky, who's debuting his newest series. Charles, let me ask you, you primarily choose to paint in black and white oils. Is there some significance to that? When you go, you spent 10 years in Spain where I envisage color. Nothing but color.
Well, this is something that I actually accidentally stumbled into.
Really? Accidentally?
Long before.
Are you colorblind?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I will tell you, the next worst thing for an artist is I really don't have a real good color sense. And part of what I did was, well after I was out of school, I decided, well, I don't really my color is arbitrary.
Well,
so
I'm noticing you're sitting in studio in black.
Yeah, that's because I read sometimes. One time I read that artists only wear black. So.
Okay. Leonardo da Vinci might argue that, but anyway. Sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway, the black and white thing was just an accident. I decided to teach myself color again, and it started with value. I started painting in monochromatic, and I said, well, I don't need color. It says everything I need to say, and that was it. I just stopped that process and just started painting in black and white, and I've never really had any craving to do it. I've been asked to, when are you going to paint in color? And I said,
now let me ask you, are you prolific? Do you paint a lot? Some artists sort of go through stages, and then they have to back away, and then they come back, but some artists are very prolific.
No, I would say, that's a question that somebody else can answer better, because but I've been called very prolific. I just produce all the time, and part of it is that's the only way I move forward. If I sit back and I just get lazy and the same idea just grinds around your head. You got to spit something out on a piece of paper
and then move on to the next idea.
And just keep punching through it. Whether or not it's any good or it's not, you just got to keep going.
Women seem to be very much an inspiration in your work. Tell us about that.
Well, I think that one of the things that forever, I love women. I'm not going to be apologetic about that.
We love women too,
and we love men who love women,
and we love men who love women. Yeah.
You know, what I'd like everybody to understand is it's not just a man who likes women. I have a deep respect for women, and I think I got it in my head one time a long time ago that men were ruining the world, and if we just handed it over to women, we might be able to get someplace.
You know what? I think he should be a regular contributor on
I
this
think
show.
so.
Sharon. I mean,
So anyway, just to finish that thought, I decided, all the women in my pictures are in positions of power, where the men are really the secondary characters. I mean, there has to be men because that's the human balance. And if you're going to tell the story of life, you're going to have all the. But essentially, it's always about representing women as power figures. This show is a little bit. It's a little bit of a transitional show, so it doesn't show that quite as much as some of the other work. But clearly, the authority figures in this narrative are all women.
So we need to tell our listeners where they can go to find out more about you and then about this show.
Well, you can always go to my website. It's a little bit outdated right now, but it's www.charlesmalinsky.com.
Malinsky with a Y.
Malinsky with a Y, M-A-L.
Yes.
And also Artworld Fine Art, who's hosting the show and the event this evening at the Cambria Gallery. Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff.
And the series that's on display, is it already sold or are there paintings for sale?
Oh, they're all for sale. Right
They're
now.
all for sale.
Yeah.
Okay. Not that we could afford. I don't know. I can't afford
it.
Then
you can say Dr. Dre and David Crusoe and Christine Bentley.
Yeah, exactly.
Interestingly enough, the prices aren't really outrageous. So.
Okay.
I like
well, this has been a huge pleasure.
Yes.
And maybe one day we'll meet a second cultural entity. I think that's the coolest title ever.
I know.
I am so. I just think it's amazing. And it's the coolest title, and you are a really cool guy.
You are.
Thanks very much. It's just been really nice being here, and thanks for inviting me over.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.